Every country that has the death penalty has no drug problem. They come to our country because we have a much softer policy. We give them a slap on the wrist and say, kill a lot of people. It destroys your skin, it destroys your teeth, it destroys your brain, it destroys everything.
It is a move that can actually make it politically easier for President Trump to send U.S. troops to Mexico without the approval of Congress. Now, this designation will target criminal organizations like the Sinaloa in the Jalisco New Generations cartels, which are involved in human trafficking, violent crimes, but also fueling the fentanyl crisis here in the United States.
Now in today's show, President Trump says he's ready to impose the death penalty on anyone who sells illicit drugs, calling the policy very humane. Also, Senator John Fetterman circulates a petition to legalize herb at the federal level, and a Washington bill to legalize home grows has been approved by the House committee ahead of a key deadline. All of that and more in today's show, but let's start off right here where President Trump says he's ready to impose the death penalty on anyone who sells illicit drugs and why this may not be a bad thing for home growers. Now, as you guys can see from this article, which was published yesterday, the headline will get a lot of attention, not just because it involves President Trump, but also because it involves the death penalty, and specifically imposing it on people who sell illicit drugs. So that being said, I can see why a lot of people in the legacy market or the free market will probably be pretty concerned. And we're going to go through this article and have a look at what he said, but I'm going to break down why I think that this does not necessarily affect home growers or even people operating in the legacy market when it comes to herb. Now, the article says that the Trump administration has projected that it will cut drug use in the US by 50% during his term by launching an aggressive advertising campaign to warn Americans about the harms of substance misuse. Now that begs the question, what type of substances are we referring to and what type of drugs are we talking about? Now, according to this article, President Trump says that if you notice, every country that has the death penalty has no drug problem. They execute the drug dealers. And when you think about it, it's very humane because every drug dealer on average, they say, kills at least 500 people, not to mention the damage they do to so many others, but they kill large numbers of people. And that obviously leads you to think about the current opioid epidemic and fentanyl crisis which is being faced in the US. So to me, I don't think that President Trump is actually referring to the good herb when he speaks about this particular issue. In fact, in the recent past, we've actually heard President Trump express support for both medical and adult use herb. And before we hear what he has to say about this current death penalty issue, let's hear what he had to say about the herb.
Former President Trump seems to be in favor of legalization in Florida after saying people shouldn't be jailed for it.
As we legalize it throughout the country, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's awfully hard to have people all over the jails that are in jail right now for something that's legal. So I think obviously there's a lot of sentiment to doing that.
In a Truth Social post yesterday, he wrote, personal amounts of marijuana will be legalized for adults with Amendment 3 through the approval of voters. He also said taxpayer dollars should not be wasted arresting people who carry personal amounts.
Medical marijuana has been amazing. I've had friends and I've had others and doctors telling me that it's been absolutely amazing. We put out a statement that we can live with the marijuana. It's got to be a certain age. Got to be a certain age to buy it. It's got to be done in a very concerted, lawful way.
So as you guys can see, he does not necessarily have a big problem when it comes to the herb, but what he does have a big problem with is the fentanyl that's coming across the border and killing millions of Americans. And that's exactly what he cited when he was asked about the death penalty issue.
And also there's fentanyl coming in, I think, to all of these states. That's a real problem, and I think that everyone is sharing that.
Thank you, Henry. So I had a deal with President Xi just prior to leaving office, but before the election, that President Xi was going to give the maximum penalty to anybody sending fentanyl into the United States. His maximum penalty is death. If you notice that every country that has the death penalty has no drug problem, they execute drug dealers. And when you think about it, it's very humane because every drug dealer on average, they say, kills at least 500 people, not to mention the damage they do to so many others, but they kill large numbers of people. China, Singapore, actually there are quite a few, many in Asia where they have the death penalty. There's no drug problem whatsoever. They come to our country because we have a much softer policy. We give them a slap on the wrist and say, kill a lot of people. I don't know if our country is ready for it. I am ready for it. The death penalty if you deal drugs, you have to set out guidelines like fairly large numbers, et cetera. But you'll have it go down very greatly. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to do an advertising campaign. They're working on it right now, and that's saying how bad drugs are. We have now hired a couple of the best agencies, and we're going to spend about $100 million, maybe $200 million on advertising, saying that when you take certain drugs, the drug fentanyl, et cetera, it destroys your skin, it destroys your teeth, it destroys your brain, it destroys everything. So I think that this is a big statement, but I think we can drop it 50%, 50, by doing this. And I think states can do that too. If you do commercials talking about how horrible it is, drugs, I mean, what it does, I mean, you look at their skin, it gets eroded, their teeth are, you can tell. I mean, you can see a person that takes a lot of drugs, especially fentanyl and some of the others, the bad ones, the real bad ones, some of them, the heroin. It's unbelievable what it does to people.
So as you guys can see there, the main focus is on fentanyl and harder drugs. So a lot of people who may think that, oh, the reefer madness is coming back, he's trying to kill people for taking... No, that's not happening. It's really only the hard drugs that's killing millions of Americans every single day. Now, some of you guys may not actually know this, but fentanyl is a highly potent synthetic opioid, and it's actually the #1 leading cause of overdose death in Americans aged 18 to 45. It's far stronger than a lot of these other things that are out there. Often one single pill may appear as a pharmaceutical painkiller. Oftentimes it may just look as a regular harmless pill, and the fact that it is a highly potent synthetic opioid suggests that a lot of the big pharma knows that this is a problem, but because big pharma also relies on opioids, they're not really doing a whole lot about it. According to this stat, we've lost more Americans to fentanyl-laced pills and other addictive drugs than in all the wars the United States has fought since the end of World War II. So clearly it's a massive problem and is killing millions of people, and that's why President Trump designated the cartel as a terrorist organization.
A long anticipated threat in the fight against drug cartels has become a reality. President Trump officially designating them as foreign terrorist organizations. This decision previously facing opposition from Mexican leaders. News Nation's Jorge Ventura joining us with more on this from Texas. Jorge, good morning to you. What does this new designation mean for the fight against these dangerous cartels?
Well, Marnie, good morning. Now, with this designation, Mexican cartels now will be joining a list of foreign terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. It is a move that can actually make it politically easier for President Trump to send U.S. troops to Mexico without the approval of Congress. Now, this designation will target criminal organizations like the Sinaloa and the Jalisco New Generations cartels, which are involved in human trafficking, violent crimes, but also fueling the fentanyl crisis here in the United States. Now, under U.S. law, this designation does allow the U.S. government to freeze cartel money, ban travel, and punish anyone helping these criminal groups. Officials say that Mexican cartel operations across the border threaten U.S. safety and security.
And under the Trump administration, our country will not be turned into a dumping ground.
Well, here is more disturbing information. The pure danger we face. Drug cartels are infiltrating cities across America now. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, estimates there are more than 70,000 deaths each year. And they look specifically at 2021, 2022, and 2023 under the Biden administration, directly related to the fentanyl epidemic that's been driven by the vicious cartel drug rings.
Now, I want you guys to understand why this is such a big issue and why it's so important. A lot of these cartels that are bringing in this poison into our communities are literally poisoning children and teenagers near schools. And it's one thing when adults involved, but it's a whole nother story when the kids are involved. Have a look at this clip.
And if you want to get even a deeper sense of just how far and deadly the reach of the cartels is, look at the community of Carrollton in North Texas. The Dallas Division of the Drug Enforcement Administration discovered the Sinaloa cartel was responsible for multiple teenage fentanyl deaths. And DEA seized 1.2 million deadly pills in 2023. Brooke Taylor interviewed the head of DEA in Dallas. She's in Texas now, Brooke.
Hi, Harris. Once these pills get across the border, they just get trafficked further into the U.S., impacting communities like here in Dallas. We sat down with the head of the DEA in the Dallas division. He says that fentanyl just continues to poison our communities. Special agent in charge, Eduardo Chavez, says that fentanyl remains the deadliest illicit drug available in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. According to the DEA, in 2024, there were more than 367 million fentanyl pills seized nationwide. The Dallas Field Division seized about 40 million deadly doses.
For parents, you know, those who are in their 30s and 40s and 50s and raising children, this is not the same drugs that we remember growing up when we heard all of the campaigns about it. The game has changed and has become ever more deadly.
So the game has definitely changed and things are a lot more dangerous, and I think that that's something that a lot of you guys need to take into account. So let me know what you guys think about that. Drop it in the comments down below. I want to find out what you guys think. And just a quick reminder, guys, if you're getting value from this video, please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support us further, join the ICANN VIP Bean Club or shop the merch store and cop some merch. Now in our next story, Democrat Senator John Fetterman circulates a petition to legalize herb at the federal level. According to this article, Senator Fetterman is actually urging people to sign a petition to show just how much support he has on this particular issue. Now, this is not the first time that Senator Fetterman has actually done something in this nature, trying to get people to support legalization of the herb. He actually advocated for this multiple times in the past, including under the Biden administration, and we'll get into what the Biden administration had to say in response to him, but let's hear first what John Fetterman had to say himself.
You don't have to love or use marijuana in order to be for its legalization. I don't consume tobacco, but I believe in your right to consume it safely and legally and have it be taxed. I don't consume alcohol on great quantities, but I think you should be able to do that. We need to get to the point where legal marijuana in Pennsylvania is an issue we no longer debate, and we decide that we need to make this happen for everyone's benefit. Legal marijuana is serious policy for these serious times. Legal marijuana is not a panacea, but it can be a serious option for jobs and revenue.
So clearly Fetterman is on board when it comes to legalization, and this is actually something that the previous Biden administration was asked, and Karine Jean-Pierre had this to say. She actually did not say a whole lot, but pivoted to the opioid issue.
Finally, Senate candidate Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman says he is going to be at the parade in Pittsburgh on Labor Day, and quote, he looks forward to talking to the president there about the need to finally decriminalize marijuana. The president has said in the past we need to rethink our approach. Has he decided how he wants to rethink the approach? Does he agree with John Fetterman?
So I don't have anything right now to announce, but I just want to talk a little bit and take a step back to talk about our drug policy that we have been very clear about. But I'll lay some stuff here. We're at an urgent moment when it comes to an overdose epidemic. You've heard the president talk about that. More than 100,000 lives lost in the most recent 12-month period. The bulk of our early efforts have been focused on addressing the addiction and overdose epidemic. That's what we have talked about these past 19 months, which has worsened during the course of the pandemic, sadly. Untreated addiction and overdose deaths require urgent attention, and having evidence-based policies in place is critical. That is incredibly important to this president. But at the same time, President Biden believes that there are too many people serving unduly long sentences for nonviolent drug crimes, a disproportionate number of whom are Black and brown. That's why in April, during the Second Chance Month, President Biden announced 17 sentences, commutations, and 3 pardons, which are more grants of clemency at this point in a presidency than any of his 5 recent predecessors. As I have said before, the president supports leaving decisions regarding legalization for recreational use up to the states, rescheduling cannabis as a Schedule II drug so researchers can study its positive and negative impacts. And at the federal level, he supports decriminalizing marijuana use and automatically expunging any prior criminal records. We don't have anything to announce today at this point, but just wanted to lay that for you.
So it seems to me that those were a bunch of pre-planned talking points, and that's something we become familiar with when we hear Karine Jean-Pierre speak. Now, everyone has their own views and their own opinions on her and what she says, but I want to pinpoint one thing in particular that she just mentioned. Firstly, she was asked about legalization of herb, and specifically Fetterman's push in regards to that particular issue. How we ended up talking about overdose deaths and fentanyl and all that, I've got no idea. But when she eventually did start to talk about the herb, she mentioned that President Biden, similarly to what President Trump says, is that he's down to leave leave it up to the states. Let the states determine what they want to do when it comes to legal herb. And she also mentioned that we got the ball rolling when it comes to rescheduling, but after 4 years, we know that hasn't gone anywhere. And the truth is, I think a lot of people will prefer descheduling rather than rescheduling. So let me know what you think about that, and shout out to Fetterman for supporting legalization of herb. And also shout out to Washington, because recently Washington proposed a bill to legalize home grows, and that was approved by the House committee ahead of a key deadline. Now, some of you guys may know Washington legalized a long time ago, back in 2012, but that being said, it currently does not allow for home grows. Only licensed producers and qualifying patients are authorized to grow under their current regulations. So what this newly proposed bill will do will allow adults 21 and older to grow up to 6 plants at home for personal use. And what I really like is that the Washington state legislature was able to recognize that when they legalized and passed I-502 back in 2012, what they did not allow for was home grows. And in so doing, it remained a Class C felony to grow a plant at home, despite the fact that you can buy products legally from a store that involve that same plant. So it's time to make a change. Now, if this bill is enacted into law, it will allow adults 21 and older to cultivate 6 plants at home for personal use, with households capped at 15 plants regardless of how many adults reside in the premises. And check this out, people could also lawfully keep the herb produced by those plants despite the state's existing 1 ounce limit on possession. So I think that that's amazing. That shows lawmakers are understanding finally how the plant works, understanding that finally one plant can produce more than 1 ounce, and also understanding that finally, despite a decade of legalization over in Washington, not having home grows is absolutely crazy. So I definitely think that's a move in the right direction. Shout out to Washington. They may not be doing everything right, but when it comes to this, at least they're recognizing that they're making the change in the right direction. Now, a state that seems to be moving in the wrong direction is Ohio, because recently they made big steps to legalize, but it seems that right now they're trying to repeal all that and pull everything back. So check that video out, because it's coming up right now.